What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Today, I want to talk to you about The Art of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. This is written by Phil Szostak, and I say that in air quotes because he didn't really write hardly anything with this book. Near as I can tell, there was a whole lot of concept art for Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and he compiled what he felt like was the best stuff to showcase in this book that's about 200, 250 pages, something like that. And then there are quotes attributed to some of the concept artists. He didn't actually write all that much at all. Now, he may have been very important in compiling all of this, but I feel like they should have given him a different title here instead of saying written by Phil Szostak. But anyway, this came out before Star Wars: The Force Awakens did, I believe, because as you get further into the book, I started to notice there are not any big spoilers for the movie. There might be vague spoilers like, okay, we go to this planet and we go to this planet, but there are some spoilers in the movie concerning the villain, and by now, I'm assuming if you've clicked on this video, you've seen the movie, and this book is very careful not to spoil those spoilers, and I thought that was odd, because who is going to buy a book called Star Wars: The Art of The Force Awakens and not see the movie first? I guess maybe they were afraid of people buying this so that they could feel like they had the upper hand on someone who didn't have access to book whenever they went to the theater, maybe. But I thought that was a little weird that they would even release this before the movie came out. I would think release it a month or two after the movie comes out, but I'm not in charge, so I guess they know what they're doing. But anyway, this book was very eye-opening for me on the creative process of this movie, and I'm assuming all of the Disney Star Wars movies kind of had a similar creative process. This one obviously had a lot more free room to wiggle around with before they kind of landed in the direction they wanted to go. Whenever they're creating The Last Jedi, they obviously had a foundation that they had to start from because they already had characters that were cast in the previous movie. But with this one, it seems like all of the visualists, that's what they're called in this book, they refer to anyone who's basically a concept artist as a visualist, and most of the concept art here is paintings, something kind of like what you're seeing here on the cover, but there are a few maquettes or sculpts that are shown here, so there was some of that, but most of what you see here is 2D paintings that I guess were done on computer. They don't really talk a lot about how we did this concept art, which is unfortunate, because if you are interested in that kind of aspect of movie making, you might want to know, okay, was this done on an iPad or on a computer? Was this just done on a sheet of paper with some paint? I'd like to know, but they don't really go into a lot of that. But anyway, basically, production started on The Force Awakens in January 2013. You may remember it was around November of 2012 when Disney announced that they had purchased Lucasfilms and they were going to be doing a new Star Wars trilogy. And then January of 2013 is when they started on concept art. And basically, as near as I can tell, everyone who was doing concept art was given a lot of freedom to do whatever they wanted. And the guy who compiled this, Phil Szostak, I saw a tweet from him on Twitter where he said, just because it's in The Art of Star Wars book does not mean that it was at one time considered to be in the movie. He was saying that about something in The Art of the Last Jedi, which I have not read. But in this, there is one picture definitely that would never have made it into the movie. It was the Death Star apparently submerged in the desert and then rising from the desert, and there's sand coming off of it. It looks really cool. It makes absolutely no sense at all, but it looks really cool. And apparently there was a lot of that, where someone is just given free reign, draw our evil Jedi Killer, and then they draw him as an alien, and then it might be months later before they land on the idea, spoilers for the movie if you haven't seen it, which you obviously have, that Kylo Ren is the son of Princess Leia and Han Solo. It's very interesting going through this, and what I like about it is it goes chronologically. It starts in January 2013, and then it will say, okay, and then in February, we made this much progress. We decided that we were going to do this, and then as you go further through 2013, you start to see germs of what eventually became the movie. But there is a lot of stuff here where it's like, that's really cool, and it wasn't in the movie. There's this one part that someone drew pretty early on. It's a double-sided lightsaber. One half is red and one half is blue. I thought that looked really cool. But there's stuff in here where the visualists were just kind of doing whatever they wanted. And then J.J. Abrams, Lawrence Kasdan, and Michael Arndt, for as long as he was on the movie, they would just look at it and then they might say, yeah, try going in this direction. At one point, one of the visualists here was talking about J.J. Abrams would say, let's have these spaceships be red, and that might be the only direction that they were given, and then they would do some more concept art where it's red, or they might draw a little speeder, and then J.J. Abrams would say, what if we turn it around? What if we have them facing the other way, and that's the way the speeder's supposed to go? So very little direction here, which is kind of odd to me, because this is a billion-dollar movie. Literally, they spent billions of dollars buying Star Wars so that they can make these movies, and then you have these concept artists who are allowed to just do basically whatever they wanted. Now, eventually, they did have to get into doing some stuff that would kind of inform the design of the movie, but a lot of this is stuff like, okay, we decided to go in this direction, then we decided to go in this direction, like influences on the sets and stuff. At one point, they're talking about, we wanted this to look like an Arabian Bazaar, like, you know, the influential style, and so they kind of just did whatever they wanted, which was surprising to me, and it doesn't seem like they had a lot of, okay, the script says that we're going to do this, so we need to do something because the script says. It almost feels like this was kind of the other way around, where these guys do concept art, J.J. Abrams looks at the concept art, and then he goes to Michael Arndt and Lawrence Kasdan and says, okay, concept art is doing this, I want you to work that into the script. Maybe not quite that far. I don't feel like Kasdan and Arndt were super involved or concerned with the concept art. I think they were just doing their story, and then J.J. Abrams would gently nudge them in a direction, but that's another thing. I know this is the art of Star Wars The Force Awakens, but I do wish that this had given us a little bit more about the direction that the script was going, because we knew when Michael Arndt was fired. That was publicly announced, and then this at one point just quietly says, and then Michael Arndt left the production and Lawrence Kasdan continued writing. And I wish we could have had a little bit more of that. What direction was Michael Arndt wanting to take the story? Why did he quit? And of course, this is an officially sanctioned book by Lucasfilms and Disney, so they're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of why he quit or was fired. They're not going to get into all of that, but I wish we could have had a little bit more of a candid look at that. And like I said, this being the art of Star Wars, they're not going to get so much in the script production. But basically, I like this, but I do wish there was a little bit more information on it. And also, the cover price here is $40 US whenever it first came out. That is expensive. I did not pay that much. I bought this used, as you can probably tell. It's got a little rip here on the dust jacket. It doesn't bother me. The book is still readable. But if you're going to make this book be $40, I think you should give us all the concept art. Why would you pick and choose? Why would you say, okay, there were 60-something designs of this character, and we chose 2 of them? If it's going to be $40, you should make this thing be 500 pages and give us all of the concept art. I don't think that you should be charging that high of a price for a book that is a whole lot of pictures, and it might take you an afternoon to get through it. Now, there are some words that you can kind of dwell on, but I feel like it needs more of that. I think this book is not nearly dense enough for the price that you would have paid when you first got it. Now, you can be like me and you can buy it on eBay, but it's still going to be a little steep if you buy it used for what little substance you're getting here. But I was very surprised at how loosey-goosey everything seems to have been in the making of this movie. And also, looking at the final product of the trilogy, I'm going to say something controversial. If you like Star Wars, maybe put your earmuffs on for a little bit, but it doesn't surprise me that much now that I look at the original or the final sequel trilogy, how it seems like they weren't really planning anything. They just kind of were playing it by ear, and that's very evident here, where they didn't have a lot of the ideas in the final movie. They just said, concept artists, do your own thing, and we're going to kind of do our own thing here. It is interesting to note here that originally the character of Poe Dameron was a black guy, and the character of Finn was actually a white guy. They kind of did a little switching around there, sort of. Very early on, concept of Rey, and I should say all of them had different names at first, and I have no idea what made them decide, we're going to call this character, who originally was Kira, we're going to call her Rey, we're going to call Sam Finn, we're going to call John Doe Poe. Obviously, John Doe was a placeholder name, but Kira and Sam feel like they could have been actual names of characters in the movie, and so it was weird to me that suddenly, towards the very end of the book, they're like, Kira now being called Rey, and I would have liked to have known, why did they do that? That's a really minor change, but I mean, the name of a character is important, but why did they say, you know, we've been calling this character Kira in the concept art in the script for a year, and then we suddenly changed her name to Rey? That's a little odd, but the concept art of Kira/Rey looks a lot like Daisy Ridley from almost the very beginning. I wish I had marked that, but I'll see if I can find it while I'm talking to you. But obviously the concept art for Finn was very different because they ended up casting John Boyega. Here we have a picture of Sam and Kira, and she looks a lot like Daisy Ridley, and that is from January of 2013. And then obviously the Sam guy looks kind of like Anakin Skywalker, I think. And then speaking of, I said there was a picture of the Jedi Killer. Here's their alien version of the Jedi Killer. Does not look anything like Kylo Ren. So it's very obvious reading this, like they came on these ideas later in the production of the movie. Like, hey, what if this Jedi Killer was Han and Leia's son? So then they completely go in a different direction, and you can kind of see when they would start to arrive at some of these ideas, which is pretty cool. But I wonder, looking at this, and from the very beginning, Rey/Kira looks kind of like a young Princess Leia. I'm curious if the original plan for the character was that she was going to be Kylo Ren's sister, and she didn't know that she had a brother, and then we would have found that out if J.J. Abrams had stayed on. I'm curious about that. I don't know, but looking at the concept art, she pretty much stays consistently looking the same, even well before they had cast Daisy Ridley. This is obviously before they had cast anyone, because their designs for Sam and John Doe looked nothing like the characters of Finn and Poe. And so it's interesting to me that she does look a lot like Daisy Ridley. So I'm curious if J.J. Abrams was saying she needs to look like young Carrie Fisher from the first Star Wars movie, and then they were setting out to find somebody who looked like that. This idea of what they had from the word go. I don't know. That's just speculation on my part, but I do find that to be interesting. Also, Sam and Kira, Finn and Rey, they were in the story idea from the very beginning, and they knew they were going to have Luke, Han, and Leia, and also they did a lot of design work for Luke, who's only in the movie for about 10 seconds, and I feel like maybe they thought he was going to be in the movie more than what he was. Maybe not. Maybe they knew he wasn't going to be in it that much. But Poe, or John Doe, they didn't come up with his idea for his character until a few months into production. And that also kind of makes sense, because you watch The Force Awakens, it almost feels to me like they intended to kill off Poe whenever Finn lands on Jakku, and then later they said, no, we like this guy, let's keep him in the movie, so then they write him in the final act. But here, we actually see some concept art of John Doe leaving Sam behind deliberately. Like, he's like, you're going to slow me down. And so we see him walking away, and it definitely paints Poe in more of a villainous light than what he was in the movie. Maybe that's why they did that weird scene where Finn wakes up and he's nowhere to be found. Maybe they just cut that so that we will like Poe. I don't know. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in this book. So if you like behind-the-scenes stuff of making movies that you like, I would recommend give this a chance if you can find it kind of cheap, because I definitely don't think it's worth $40. I don't even think it's worth $20. I think if you can find it cheaper than that, and you really like these movies, or maybe you're just mildly curious about the production of the movies. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of the Star Wars sequels, so I wasn't just like, yeah, I really want to know about the creation of Maz and Jakku and all of that. But it's still very interesting seeing how they went in the direction that they went. So those are my thoughts on the art of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back in the future with some more videos. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.